The phone call came at 2:17 a.m., November 8th, 2007. Muhammad Ali's home in Paradise Valley, Arizona. The bedside phone rang with that particular urgency that middle-of-the-night calls always carry. Bad news. Emergency. Someone died. Ali's wife Lonnie answered, her voice thick with sleep. Hello, Mrs. Ali. This is Father Michael O'Brien calling from St. Joseph's Hospital in Houston. I'm sorry to call so late, but I have a patient here who's asking for your husband. He says it's urgent. He says he's dying and needs to speak to Muhammad before he passes. Lonnie sat up, turned on the lamp. Who is it? His name is Judge Walter Hoffman. He says your husband will remember him. Before we continue with the story, you can support us by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Don't forget to write in the comments where you're watching from and how old you are. Let's continue. The name hit Lonnie like cold water. She remembered. Everyone who knew Ali's story remembered. Judge Walter Hoffman, federal judge, Southern District of Texas. The man who had sentenced Muhammad Ali in 1967 for refusing induction into the armed forces. 5 years in prison, $10,000 fine. The beginning of Ali's exile from boxing. You want to speak to Muhammad? Lonnie asked carefully. He says he has something he needs to confess. Something about the trial. He's quite insistent, Mrs. Ali. And he doesn't have much time. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors say hours, maybe a day at most. Lonnie looked at her husband sleeping beside her. Muhammad Ali at 65, ravaged by Parkinson's disease. His face peaceful in sleep in a way it never was when awake anymore. The tremors that plague his waking hours stilled by unconsciousness. She made a decision. We'll be there. Give me the room number. 6 hours later, Muhammad Ali walked, slowly, with assistance, his gait shuffling from the Parkinson's, into room 407 of St. Joseph's Hospital in Houston, Texas. The man in the bed didn't look like a federal judge. Didn't look like someone who'd once wielded the power of the United States government. He looked like what he was, a dying man. 87 years old. Skeletal. Skin like tissue paper stretched over bone. Eyes sunken but alert. Awake. Waiting. Judge Walter Hoffman turned his head when Ali entered, and tears immediately started running down his face. Muhammad, he whispered. His voice was barely there, ravaged by disease and decades. You came. Ali moved to the bedside. His hand shook. His face was the mask that Parkinson's creates, expression muted, emotions hidden beneath the disease. But his eyes were clear, watching, remembering. Judge Hoffman, Ali said slowly. The Parkinson's slurred his speech now, made every word an effort. But the words came. Long time. 40 years, Hoffman said. 40 years, 3 months, and 16 days since I sentenced you. I've counted every one of them. A nurse hovered near the door. Lonnie stood beside Ali, ready to support him if needed. A priest, Father O'Brien, waited in the corner. But the room felt empty except for these two men, the judge and the fighter, connected by a moment 4 decades past that had changed both their lives. Why did you ask to see me? Ali asked. Because I'm dying, and I can't die with this lie between us. Hoffman's hands trembled as he reached for a water cup. Couldn't grasp it. The priest stepped forward, helped him drink. Hoffman nodded thanks, then turned back to Ali. I need to tell you the truth about your trial, about what really happened, about why I sentenced you the way I did. I know why, Ali said. I refused military service. Broke the law. No. Hoffman's voice got stronger. Urgent. You didn't break the law. The law was broken against you, and I helped break it. The room went very still. Ali's expression didn't change. Couldn't change much. The Parkinson's saw to that, but something shifted in his eyes. A sharpening, an intensity. What are you saying? Lonnie asked when Ali didn't speak. Hoffman closed his eyes. Tears squeezed out. I'm saying that Muhammad Ali's conviction in 1967 was a fraud. That I knew he had legitimate grounds for conscientious objector status. That I was ordered by people far above my pay grade, to convict him anyway. And I did it. God forgive me, I did it. The words hung in the sterile hospital air like smoke. Outside, Houston traffic hummed. Monitors beeped. Life continued. But in room 407, history was being rewritten. Tell me, Ali said quietly. Tell me everything. And Judge Walter Hoffman, with hours left to live and nothing left to lose, told the truth he'd carried for 40 years. It was April 1967. The Vietnam War was escalating. Muhammad Ali, still Cassius Clay to many, had refused induction into the armed forces, citing his religious beliefs as a Muslim minister and his opposition to the war. The case had landed in Hoffman's courtroom in Houston, and from the moment the file hit his desk, Hoffman knew something was wrong. The evidence was clear, Hoffman said, his dying voice gaining strength from confession. Ali had been a member of the Nation of Islam since 1964. He was a registered minister. He'd given speeches at mosques across the country. His objection to military service was based on sincere religious conviction, the exact criteria for conscientious objector status. He paused for breath. The effort of talking was exhausting him, but he pushed on. Under the law, the actual law, he should have been granted CO status. His draft board had even recommended it initially. But then something changed. What changed? Lonnie asked. Washington got involved. The FBI. J. Edgar Hoover himself. Hoffman's hands clenched the bedsheet. 2 weeks before the trial, I got a call. Not through official channels. A private number. Man wouldn't give his name, but he said he was calling on behalf of the director. That's what they called Hoover. Just the director. Like there was only one person who mattered. Ali leaned forward slightly, listening, not interrupting. The man said that Cassius Clay, that's what they called you, wouldn't use your Muslim name, was a threat to national security. That letting you avoid the draft would encourage other young black men to resist. That you were more dangerous than any Viet Cong because you could inspire domestic rebellion. Hoffman's voice cracked. He said that the government needed you convicted, that it was a matter of national importance, and that judges who understood national importance were the kind of judges who got promoted to appeals courts, circuit courts, maybe even higher. He threatened you, Lonnie said flatly. No, he bribed me, or tried to. Hoffman wiped his eyes. But when I said I couldn't convict a man who legally qualified for CO status, that's when the threat started. So they had information about my son, Robert. He'd been arrested at a protest in Berkeley. Marijuana possession. Small amount. First offense. Charges had been dropped. He looked at Ali. The man said those charges could be reinstated. Federal charges this time. Could ruin Robert's life. Law school applications. Career. Everything. Unless I understood how important it was that Cassius Clay be convicted. The monitors beeped. The priest shifted uncomfortably. This was confession, but not the kind he usually heard. So I did it, Hoffman continued. I went into that courtroom knowing the law said you should go free, knowing your conscientious objector claim was valid. And I convicted you anyway. 5 years in prison. $10,000. Stripped you of your title and your license to fight. His voice broke completely. I destroyed your career. Took 3.5 years of your prime. Cost you millions of dollars. Turned you into a criminal in the eyes of the country. And I did it to protect my son from charges that should never have been brought in the first place. Ali sat very still. His hands trembled, but they always trembled now. His face showed nothing, but it never showed much anymore. Only his eyes revealed emotion, and they were wet. Did you know? Hoffman asked. Did you know the trial was rigged? For a long moment, Ali didn't answer. The silence stretched. Lonnie looked at her husband, surprised, waiting. Finally, Ali spoke. His voice slow but clear. Yes, I knew. Hoffman's eyes went wide. You knew? How? Elijah Muhammad told me. Ali's words came carefully, one at a time. Leader of a nation of Islam. He had sources, people in government. They told him the trial was fixed, that no matter what evidence we presented, I'd be convicted. He told me before the verdict came in. And you said nothing? Lonnie looked shocked. All these years, you knew the trial was corrupt, and you never said anything? What would I say? Ali asked. I had no proof. Just rumors, accusations. And even if I had proof, what good would it do? The conviction happened. I was banned from boxing. Speaking out wouldn't change that. Would just make me look like I was making excuses. He looked at Hoffman. Besides, you had your reasons. You were protecting your son. I understand that. I have children too. I know what a father will do to protect his child. But I ruined your life. Hoffman was crying openly now. I took your career, your prime years. You took 3.5 years. Ollie interrupted gently. And you know what I did with those 3.5 years? I spoke at colleges, traveled the country, became more than just a boxer, became a voice for people who opposed the war, for people who believed standing for principle mattered more than following orders. His hands shook as he reached out and took Hoffman's skeletal hand. If I'd gone to Vietnam, I would have been another athlete serving his country, forgotten in a few years. But because I refused, because you convicted me, I became a symbol. My exile made people pay attention to what I was saying. May my eventual comeback mean something. You're saying I did you a favor? Hoffman's voice was incredulous. No, you did something wrong. You let powerful people pressure you into betraying your oath as a judge. You convicted an innocent man because you were scared. Ollie squeezed the dying man's hand. But I'm saying I survived it. And maybe what came from it was worth what it cost. The Supreme Court overturned your conviction in 1971, Hoffman said. Did you know I celebrated that day? Actually celebrated. Opened a bottle of bourbon I'd been saving for 20 years and got drunk in my chambers. Because finally, someone had corrected my wrong. 8-0, Ollie said. Unanimous decision. They said my conviction was invalid, that I'd been treated unfairly. Because it was invalid. Because you were treated unfairly. Because Hoffman couldn't continue. His body shook with sobs. The monitors started beeping more urgently. The nurse moved forward. But Ollie held up his trembling hand. Wait, let him finish. Hoffman gathered himself. I wrote a letter. In 1971, after the Supreme Court ruling, apologizing, explaining what had happened, why I'd done it. I never sent it. Kept it in my desk drawer for 36 years. Took it out sometimes. Read it. Wondered if I should mail it. Why didn't you? Lonnie asked. Because I was a coward. Same reason I convicted Muhammad in the first place. I was afraid. Afraid of exposure. Afraid of losing my judgeship. Afraid of the FBI coming after me. Afraid. He looked at Ollie. You were brave, and I was a coward. That's the truth of it. Where's the letter now? Ollie asked. In that drawer. Hoffman pointed to the small bedside table. Top drawer. In an envelope marked for Muhammad Ali. Been carrying it with me for years. Waiting for the courage to give it to you. Lonnie opened the drawer. Found the envelope. Yellowed with age. She handed it to Ollie. His hands shook too much to open it. Lonnie did it for him. Pulled out several handwritten pages. Started to read aloud. Dear Muhammad Ali, I am writing to confess a grave injustice. In April 1967, I presided over your trial for refusing induction into the armed forces. I convicted you and sentenced you to 5 years in prison. But I did so knowing that under the law, you had a legitimate claim to conscientious objector status. The letter went on for 4 pages. Detailed the FBI pressure, the threats against his son, the promises of promotion, the moral calculus that led Hoffman to choose his family's safety over his judicial oath. It ended. I cannot undo what I did. I cannot give you back those 3.5 years. But I can tell the truth. You were innocent under the law. I knew it. I convicted you anyway. I am deeply, profoundly sorry. And I hope that someday, somehow, you can forgive me. Sincerely, Judge Walter Hoffman. Lonnie finished reading. Silence filled the room. Then Ollie did something that surprised everyone. He smiled. That old Ollie smile. Muted by Parkinson's, smaller than it used to be, but genuine. You want forgiveness? Ollie asked Hoffman. I don't deserve it. Nobody deserves forgiveness. That's not how forgiveness works. You just give it or you don't. Ollie's voice was soft. Kind. I forgive you, Judge Hoffman. Not because what you did was okay. It wasn't. But because you've carried this for 40 years. You've punished yourself more than any court could. And because I understand fear. I understand making choices you're not proud of. Thank you, Hoffman whispered. Thank you. But I need you to understand something, Ollie continued. Forgiving you doesn't mean what happened was acceptable. The FBI pressuring a judge, threatening a citizen, corrupting a trial because they didn't like my politics. That was evil, and it wasn't just about me. He paused, gathering strength to continue. How many other trials were fixed? How many other people were convicted because the government didn't like what they stood for? How many judges were threatened or bribed into ignoring the law? Hoffman closed his eyes. I don't know, but I suspect many. The FBI under Hoover was essentially lawless. COINTELPRO, the infiltration of civil rights groups, the targeting of activists. We've learned some of it since. But there's more. Things we'll never know. Then your confession can't just be to me, Ali said firmly. It has to be public, has to be on record, so people understand what happened, so history knows the truth. I'm dying, Hoffman said. What does it matter what I say now? It matters because the truth always matters. Because there are other people who were convicted in rigged trials who deserve to have their names cleared. Because my case got overturned, but others didn't. Because silence protects the people who did this. Hoffman looked at the priest. Father, can you witness something for me? Father O'Brien stepped forward. Of course. I, Walter Hoffman, federal judge, Southern District of Texas, do hereby confess that in April 1967, I presided over a corrupt trial. I convicted Muhammad Ali of draft evasion, knowing that he had valid grounds for conscientious objector status under federal law. I did this under pressure from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which threatened my family and promised professional advancement in exchange for a conviction. His voice grew stronger as he continued. I betrayed my oath as a judge. I allowed the government to corrupt the judicial process. And in doing so, I participated in a conspiracy to deprive Muhammad Ali of his constitutional rights. This confession is made freely, of sound mind, in the presence of witnesses. I am making it public in the hope that it will contribute to a full accounting of FBI abuses during the 1960s and 70s. He looked at Ali. Is that enough? It's a start, Ali said. Father O'Brien had been recording on his phone. I'll make sure this gets to the proper authorities. The Justice Department, congressional oversight committees, civil rights organizations. Good, Hoffman said. He looked exhausted now. The confession had drained what little energy he had left. Muhammad, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for forgiving me. You did a wrong thing 40 years ago, Ali said. But you've done the right thing today. That counts for something. Does it? Does it really? Yes. Because justice isn't just about punishment. It's about truth. And you've told the truth. That's what I needed from you. Hoffman's eyes were closing. The monitors were beeping differently now. The nurse moved closer, checking vitals, adjusting IVs. I'm tired, Hoffman said softly. Then rest. Ali told him. You've carried this long enough. Put it down now. Will you stay? Just for a few minutes? Ali looked at Lonnie. She nodded. They stayed. For the next hour, Ali sat by Judge Walter Hoffman's bedside as the old man drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes Hoffman would open his eyes and seem surprised to see Ali still there. Would smile weakly. Would whisper, "Thank you again." At 4:47 p.m., Judge Walter Hoffman died. Muhammad Ali was holding his hand. The confession made headlines 3 days later. Dying judge admits FBI corrupted Ali trial. Ran across front pages. The story exploded. Congressional hearings were called. The Justice Department launched an investigation. Documents were unsealed. And the investigation revealed that Hoffman's case wasn't isolated. The FBI under J. Edgar Hoover had pressured multiple judges, corrupted numerous trials, targeted dozens of activists and civil rights leaders with illegal surveillance and harassment. The Ali trial became the centerpiece of a broader reckoning with government abuse of power during the Vietnam era. New evidence came to light about COINTELPRO operations, about infiltration of activist groups, about the systematic targeting of people who spoke out against the war or advocated for civil rights. Muhammad Ali gave testimony to Congress. His speech was slow, labored by Parkinson's, but his message was clear. Judge Hoffman did wrong. But he wasn't the villain. He was a victim too. The real villains were the people who created a system where judges felt they had to choose between their families and their oaths, where the government treated its own citizens as enemies. where speaking truth became a crime. He paused, his trembling hands gripping the witness table. I forgave Judge Hoffman because he asked for forgiveness and told the truth. But I'm not forgiving the FBI. I'm not forgiving the government officials who ordered these corruptions. They need to be held accountable, and we need to make sure it never happens again. The hearings led to reforms. New oversight of FBI activities, restrictions on political surveillance, protections for conscientious objectors. None of it undid the past, but it created safeguards for the future. And in a quiet ceremony in 2008, the Justice Department issued a formal apology to Muhammad Ali for the corruption of his trial. Attorney General Michael Mukasey personally delivered it. The United States government failed you, Mukasey said. We allowed political considerations to corrupt judicial proceedings. We targeted you because you were effective, because people listened to you, because you represented a threat to policies we wanted to pursue. That was wrong. And on behalf of the United States, I apologize. Ali accepted the apology, but he said something that echoed Judge Hoffman's confession. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to all the others who were targeted and never got their day in court. Apologize to the people whose lives were destroyed and who didn't have the platform to fight back. I survived, but a lot of people didn't. The ripple effects of Judge Hoffman's deathbed confession continued for years. Over 50 cases from the 1960s and 70s were reviewed. 17 convictions were posthumously overturned. Families of activists who'd been targeted received settlements. The FBI's domestic surveillance programs underwent major reforms. But the biggest impact was on how Americans understood their own history. The Ali trial had always been seen as controversial but legitimate. Now it was revealed as corrupt. And if that trial was corrupt, how many others were? How much of what we thought we knew about the Vietnam era was actually government manipulation? In 2012, a documentary titled The Trial That Never Was examined Hoffman's confession and its implications. It featured interviews with legal scholars, historians, and civil rights activists. And it ended with footage from Hoffman's deathbed confession, the dying judge admitting his role in one of the most famous miscarriages of justice in American history. Muhammad Ali appeared in the documentary briefly. By then, his Parkinson's had advanced significantly. He couldn't speak much, but when asked about forgiving Hoffman, he managed a few words. He told the truth. That's what mattered. Judge Walter Hoffman's son, Robert Hoffman, the young man whose legal troubles had been used to pressure his father, also appeared in the documentary. He was 64 years old, a retired public defender. My father protected me, Robert said, but the cost was his integrity. He lived with that choice for 40 years. I didn't know. He never told me. If I'd known, I would have told him to let them prosecute me. Let them ruin my life. It would have been better than him ruining his soul. He paused, emotional, but at the end, he made it right. He told the truth, and Muhammad Ali forgave him. That's grace. That's what redemption looks like. Today, Judge Walter Hoffman's letter to Muhammad Ali is in the Smithsonian, part of an exhibit on civil rights, government overreach, and the Vietnam War era. Visitors can read the yellowed pages where a dying judge confessed to corrupting justice. Next to it is a photo from November 8th, 2007. Muhammad Ali sitting by a hospital bed, holding the hand of Judge Walter Hoffman. The judge's eyes are closed. Ali's face shows the effects of Parkinson's, the mask-like expression, the tremor. But there's something in his posture, something gentle, forgiving. The placard beneath the photo reads, 65-year-old Muhammad Ali visiting 87-year-old Judge Walter Hoffman, who confessed on his deathbed to corrupting Ali's 1967 draft evasion trial. Hoffman died less than an hour after this photo was taken. His confession led to a major investigation of FBI abuses and the posthumous exoneration of 17 other activists. The story of Judge Hoffman and Muhammad Ali teaches something important about justice, truth, and forgiveness. Hoffman did something terrible, corrupted his oath, destroyed Ali's career, and he could have taken that secret to his grave. But he didn't. At the end, with hours left to live, he told the truth, exposed the corruption, gave Ali in the country the one thing they needed most: honesty about what had really happened. And Ollie, who had every right to be angry, who'd lost prime years of his life to a corrupt conviction, chose forgiveness. Not because Hoffman deserved it, but because carrying hatred is exhausting. And because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let go. That forgiveness didn't erase the injustice, didn't give Ollie back those 3.5 years, but it freed both men. Freed Hoffman to die in peace. Freed Ollie from the burden of anger. When Muhammad Ali died in 2016, Robert Hoffman attended the funeral. He stood in line for 3 hours to pay his respects. When he finally reached the casket, he placed something inside: his father's original letter to Ollie, the one that had sat in a drawer for 36 years. "My father's confession changed history," Robert said later. "But Ali's forgiveness changed my father. Gave him peace at the end." That's the real story. Not the corruption, not the cover-up, but the grace that two men, one dying, one slowly dying, extended to each other when the truth finally came out. The lesson isn't that confession absolves all sins. It's that truth matters. That speaking up, even at the end, even when it costs you, creates ripples that extend far beyond one person, one trial, one moment. Judge Walter Hoffman corrupted justice in 1967. But in 2007, with his last breath, he restored it. Not just for Muhammad Ali, for dozens of others who'd been targeted, persecuted, convicted in show trials designed to silence dissent. That's the power of a deathbed confession. Not redemption, not absolution, but truth. Finally, painfully, necessarily, truth. And sometimes truth is the only justice we get. The story you just heard was written by me,